The human said this would be a light lunch. The first course registered as a controlled substance in 4 systems. Drelkin sat at the corner table of the establishment, his dark gray skin feeling tight under the relentless pressure of Earth's atmosphere. At 101.325 kilopascals, the air was dense, a thick soup of nitrogen and oxygen that seemed to shove the restaurant's odors directly into his secondary lungs. He could feel the ridge plates along his spine beginning a rhythmic, frantic vibration. It was the biological equivalent of a sensor clicking in the presence of a radiation leak. Tobias Drake, a human who appeared entirely too comfortable in this hazardous environment, approached with a stack of slightly damp, checkered paper napkins. Drelkin accepted them with a formal, jerky nod. He meticulously laid 3 across his lap to create a multi-layered barrier and used a 4th to scrub the wood of the table. To Tobias, this was perhaps the behavior of a fastidious diner. To Drelkin, it was a desperate attempt to neutralize the surface contaminants left by the previous occupant. "Welcome back," Tobias said, his voice carrying a casual, professionally calm tone that Drelkin found deeply suspicious. "Ready for the Inferno wings? They're the house special today." "I am prepared for the experience," Drelkin replied, his voice a heavy, 2-syllable rumble. He adjusted his rank 15 nutritionist insignia. He had arrived on this planet following a travel brochure that promised adventurous dining. He was beginning to suspect the author of that brochure was a war criminal. "I'll be honest with you, when I first saw what the humans were doing in that kitchen, I thought the local authorities would arrive in minutes. They never did." Tobias disappeared toward the kitchen, leaving Drelkin to contend with the environment. The open flame from the stovetop flickered in the distance, atomizing oils that made Drelkin's throat itch. Suddenly, the wrist-mounted scanner strapped to his forearm gave a sharp, jagged whine. Analysis. Capsaicin concentration 2,200,000 SHU. The display read. Below that, the text began to scroll in a panicked red. Reclassified. Chemical weapon. Payload detected. Contact planetary security. Drelkin stared at the screen. A chemical weapon? He looked toward the kitchen door, expecting to see a containment squad in hazmat gear. Instead, he saw Tobias balancing a tray with a smile. The mystery wasn't the substance itself. The scanner helpfully noted the molecular structure of capsaicin, but the total lack of panic from the local population. How could a Class 4 neurotoxin be served on a ceramic plate? Beneath the copper-hooded vents of the kitchen, something shifted. A low, rhythmic sizzling sound reached Drelkin's ears just before the scent hit him. It was a physical blow, a cloud of capsaicin and allicin that turned the air into a serrated blade. "Here we go," Tobias said, sliding a plate onto the checkered cloth. At the center sat 6 pieces of poultry, coated in a sauce so dark it looked like cooling magma. The scanner initiated an emergency evacuation protocol, the screen flashing a blinding amber as it attempted to bypass local comms and signal a Drolkani medical frigate. But Drelkin manually overrode the prompt with a sharp jab of his thumb. He would not flee. The competitive stubbornness that had made him a master nutritionist flared. He watched Tobias stand there, hands on his hips, breathing the toxic vapor as if it were mountain air. "Want a side of the raw ghost pepper slices?" Tobias asked, pointing to a small dish of wrinkled red skins. "Most people find they help clear the sinuses." Drelkin looked at the pepper. To his equipment, it was a payload meant for atmospheric dispersal. To this human, it was a tool for respiratory hygiene. The experience, the sheer biological impossibility of the situation, was beginning to make his ridge plates hum at a frequency that rattled his teeth. Drelkin watched a bead of condensation roll down his glass of ice water, which his scanner had already flagged as critical coolant. Across the room, the rhythmic, high-pitched squeal of a serving cart's front left will cut through the chatter. It was a sound Drelkin's processors still insisted was a tactical sonic distraction designed to lower his guard, but he chose to ignore the alert. His focus was entirely on the volatile red substance glistening on the wings. He calculated the atmospheric load of capsaicin vapor circulating through the room, noting that the pressure of 101.325 kilopascals was driving the irritants deeper into his porous ridge plates than they would ever go on the low-gravity, thin-aired mesas of Drelkin Prime. His breathing slowed. He was a master nutritionist. He would not be defeated by a terrestrial fruit. Is the smell too much? Tobias asked, leaning in with a concerned expression. Drelkin's internal display flickered. Warning. Biological integrity compromised. Commence gastric purge. The scent is robust, Drelkin replied, his plates vibrating with enough force to hum audibly. Tell me, Tobias, why do your people produce this? Well, we don't produce it, the plants do, Tobias said, leaning against his squeaky cart. It's an evolutionary defense mechanism to stop animals from eating them. Drelkin nodded slowly. This made sense. The plant was a warrior. Then he witnessed the anomaly. At the bar, a human male picked up a raw pepper, bit it in half, and began to turn a shade of purple that Drelkin had only ever seen on the cooling corpses of deep-sea cephalopods. The human began to sweat. His eyes watered. He gasped for air, clutching the counter as if his internal organs were liquefying. And then the human laughed. That's the good stuff. The man wheezed, his face a mask of agony. Drelkin's scanner stalled. Wait, Drelkin said, his voice rising in pitch. He is experiencing acute neurological distress. Why is he requesting a second unit? It's the endorphins, man, Tobias explained, wiping a spill. The pain makes you feel alive. It's a rush. We call it a recreational burn. Drelkin stared at the red object on his own plate. It was not a weapon. It was a chemical bribe for the human brain. Insanity. Against every professional instinct, Drelkin reached out. He took a single toothpick and touched the smallest drop of the dark sauce. He placed it on his tongue. The universe ended. His ridge plates didn't just vibrate. They flared like a solar discharge, sending a shockwave of heat through his dark gray skin. His scanner simply gave up, the screen turning black and displaying a single word in Drelkani. Goodbye. He spent the next 3 minutes convinced he could see his own ancestors standing in the kitchen. You okay there, big guy? Tobias asked, holding out a pitcher of milk. Drelkin took a shaky breath, his eyes streaming with tears he didn't know his species could produce. He reached for his stylus. I require the recipe, he rasped, his voice a ghost of its former self. For scientific purposes. Back at the terminal, he updated the planetary file. He moved the pepper from the armament category to the condiment folder, though his hands still trembled as he typed. On the desk, the single red skin looked harmless, a tiny, wrinkled lie. Drelkin watched the sunlight catch its waxy surface, a silent vessel of agony that millions of humans ate for fun.